Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're going to do Who is Better. Now I've done another video like this previously comparing Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, and you guys seem to like it, so I figured let's roll with another one. I titled this Who is Better instead of Who was Better because one of these wrestlers is still fully active, two are part-time, and one I'm guessing is retired fully. So I didn't want to say who was better when three of their careers are still going. And in case you haven't figured it out by looking at the thumbnail, we're going to do the OVW Class of 2002. If you're not familiar with the OVW Class of 2002, 2002 was a banner year for developmental talent coming from OVW in that program. And we have four of the biggest stars of the last 2 decades came out of that class. Also, some other honorable mention guys like Charlie Haas, Shelton Benjamin, Rico also came out that year, which all had pretty decent careers, some better than others. But we're focusing on the main four, the four that have all main event at WrestleManias, have all been multiple time world champions. And the guys we're talking about are Randy Orton, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, and Dave Batista. I kept the categories the same as what I did for Bret and Shawn. We have 8 total categories here. Every category is going to be graded individually on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Let's jump right into it. Our first category is going to be technical wrestling, and this is basically your submission-based wrestling, your proficiency in mat wrestling, skill involved in that. Starting with Randy Orton, I'm going to give Randy a 4. He doesn't do much submission-based wrestling, but his other wrestling skills are so polished that I think where he lacks having like a submission finisher, he makes up with other moves. Next up, John Cena. I'm giving him a 3. I don't want to go too bad on Cena because there are matches where Cena is absolutely one of the best technical wrestlers in the world, and then there's matches he's not. So for that, I gave him about an average. Next up, Brock Lesnar. I mean, this is obvious. We get a guy whose whole career is based off of the fact that he's a former UFC champion. He's used the Kimura. He's used multiple suplex variations. He's getting a 5. Last but not least, Dave Batista. Dave is also going to get a 3. Much like Cena, I don't think he's proficient in it, but I don't also think he's bad. I think he's passable. He's right about average. Now, rolling into our next category, we're going with striking. This is basically your clotheslines, your super kicks, punches, forearms, chops. Starting off again with Randy Orton, I'm giving Randy a 4 in this. I think his strikes are pretty good. When you count in something like the punt, which is awesome maneuver, I think he's right up there with that. So yeah, Randy is awesome. Next up, John Cena. As far as the in-ring talent of John Cena, I think this is where he really stands out as a brawler. I think that John is such a competent brawler that it obviously hides some deficiencies in his game, and that's not a knock on any of these guys. This is just grading them on the scale. All 4 of these guys are legends and first ballot Hall of Famers whenever they feel like going in. So yeah, John's going to be a 4 there. Next up, Brock Lesnar. Obviously, we go back to his background, we go back to how he's being presented. The fact that when he hits somebody with those massive soup bone hands, it looks like it really hurts. He's getting a 5. Last but not least, Dave Batista. We're giving Dave a 4. I think much like Cena, and I think Cena and Batista's in-ring is very similar. I think Dave excelled here. Dave with the power moves, stuff of that nature, he was really good at it, and that's why he gets a 4. Next up, how they perform as a heel. Starting off with Randy Orton, I'm giving Randy a 5. I think Randy Orton as a heel is absolutely perfect. I love his psychological warfare, his mind games, the fact that he's willing to do absolutely anything makes him a great heel in my opinion. Next up, John Cena. John, I'm giving a 3. Now, he did have some heel work early in his career, and I really enjoyed that, but I don't feel like he ever got to be a heel on as big of a stage as any of the other 3 on this list. So that does knock him down a bit. I would have liked to see John as his fully fleshed out John Cena character as a heel at some point to give it a better rating than this, but I thought he was good. I mean, he wasn't bad. Obviously, it helped carry him to the top of WWE, so can't really complain about that. Next up, Brock Lesnar. He's getting a 5. I mean, just looking at Brock Lesnar sells him as a heel. He is the stuff of nightmares. You would not want to see Brock Lesnar walking down a dark alley at night. You would not want Brock Lesnar to be the guy you backed into his Ford F-150. He just looks like someone that will destroy you. So even just that gives him a 5. Last but not least, I'm sorry, Dave, but it's just how you got put on here. Dave Bautista, we're giving him a 4. I thought he was really solid. There are times where I feel he kind of let himself be outshined, and not in a way that lent to the storyline, more in a way that he just wasn't up to par with other people. And again, 4 means you're really good. This isn't a knock on him. This is just why he didn't necessarily get a 5. Now, next category, how you perform as a face. For Randy Orton, we're giving him a 3. I like Randy as a face, don't get me wrong. I think some of the stuff he did with Matt Riddle and other guys has been really fun. But to me, every time that Randy Orton's a face, you're always waiting for that point where he's going to turn on his part. He's always going to turn back heel. So for that, I can't really give him a great score as a face because we all want him to turn. Next up, John Cena. John gets a 5. I mean, whether you love him or you hate him, the amount of tickets he sold, the amount of merchandise he sold, the amount of Make-A-Wish that he did as a babyface, and just him as a babyface overall is a really great character. Now, there are times where I wish they would have turned him and got more out of it. Did he wear out his welcome at times? Kind of. But I can't really fault him for that. He is a great babyface character. In the grand scheme of things, he's one of the best of all time, in my opinion, in that category. Next up, Brock Lesnar. Brock is getting a 4. For all the things I said about Brock and just looking at him and being scared, some of that is a detractor to him as a babyface. I think he's more natural as a heel. People want to love to hate him. People want to see him as a guy that someone like a Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson overcomes, Kofi Kingston overcomes, which hopefully at some point they redo that and Kofi gets a win back, which they'll probably not do, but we can hope. I think he's more suited to be a heel, but I do still think he's really good as a babyface. Last but not least, Dave Bautista. Dave is getting a 5 too. To me, there's so many parallels with Bautista and Cena and their presentation, and you just want to cheer for Bautista. And I know there were times where he came back and you kind of didn't care, Blue Tista era. But to me, I think of Dave as a babyface turning on Evolution and how great that was. I think it makes him a great babyface character. Next category, promos. Randy Orton's up first, as he's been in all these. I have him on a board behind the camera in order this way, so it makes sense why you keep seeing them in the same order, but I digress. For promos, I'm giving Randy a 4. I think he's really good on promos. I think he is just lacking that little bit to get into that upper echelon of promos. When we look back at his career, there's not a one singular great promo that we could point to, or a number of great promos we could point to, like someone like Ric Flair or CM Punk or Dusty Rhodes would have, where you could point and say, that's a great promo. I do think he's good. He gets his point over. I just don't think he's an elite tier. Next up, John Cena. I'm giving him a 5. I think he is elite tier. When we see John match up with someone like Punk or Edge or Orton or any of the guys on this list, because they've all feuded with each other at some point or another, John really shines. And he's so witty, and sometimes his comebacks are really good. I mean, obviously the one leading up to The Rock and Cena, where he talked about what The Rock had written on his arm, was really good. There are times he tends to get a little too rah-rah, gung-ho, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, but I do think he's great. He's getting a 5. Next up, Brock Lesnar. This is the lowest score on anything on this board. Brock gets a 2. And I hate to say it, but Brock as a promo, unless he's just breaking character totally, is not impressive at all. There's a reason why he's been tied to Paul Heyman most of his career. He needed that extra somebody to talk for him. He has so many of the other tools that this is so insignificant for him. But yeah, he gets a 2, because I mean, you understand. Last but not least, our good friend Dave Bautista. Dave's getting a 4. I do think there are times where Dave is underrated as a promo guy. He's much like Randy Orton, where he didn't get into that next level, like break that ceiling where, he's great like a Chris Jericho would be. But I do think he is on a really good level, and I don't think he's someone that detracted from his matches or selling matches by his promo ability. I think he was really good at it. I mean, for what he did it well. Next category, presentation. This is music, this is their pyro if they have any, their ring gear, their running or whatever they do to come to the ring. This is an easy category. All 4 guys across the board get 5s. I mean, Randy, the way he's presented as the Viper with the song voices, just fantastic. Cena, the different color schemes, the Fruity Pebbles, if you will. His whole thing, it is so ingrained in who he is. Again, his theme song is fantastic. Brock Lesnar, he's presented as the Boogeyman, and I don't mean the character like the Boogeyman, like John Wick the Boogeyman. He's the big bad of the WWE universe. He's the Thanos of this universe. His presentation's awesome. Batista, again, fantastic. He looked like a star from his time in Evolution all the way till when he finally stopped wrestling. And even in his earlier days, seeing him as Leviathan and Deacon Batista with Reverend Devon, he had that star quality. He just wasn't fully figured out just yet. And, early on their careers, we can't blame them for that. But again, across the board, all 4 guys get a 5 here. Next up, we have charisma. Starting off with Randy Orton. Randy gets a 4. I think he's really awesome, and I love the fact that he has that Viper character so down, and it's so believable, and you understand the character. He hasn't had to tweak it much. It's him. It's perfect. Next up, John Cena. John's getting a 5 on this one. Again, there's a lot of things that John Cena does very, very well where he is on that elite level. He's kind of like here where someone like Ultimate Warrior, Sting, Hulk Hogan, all of your faces of a company have this kind of charisma that John Cena had, or still has. So yeah, he's top notch. He's in the argument to be on a Mount Rushmore for WWE, so yeah, he's there. Next up, Brock Lesnar. Brock is getting a 4 as well. He has a charisma on a different level, and most of his charisma is the same thing we've talked about over and over again. He's just a monster. He looks the part. He acts the part. It's very rare that you see Brock Lesnar not being the Brock Lesnar that we know and love. Last on this list, I'm sorry, Dave. I feel like saying you last is a disservice to you. I know you're never going to watch this, but anyway. Batista, I'm giving a 4 as well. I think he comes over more charismatic in his acting roles than he did in wrestling, and that's not a knock on him. I mean, like I said, first ballot Hall of Famer, fantastic wrestler. I absolutely loved watching Dave Batista work. But much like I said in other categories, it just felt like there was that little bit of extra where he didn't break into that top level, where your Rocks are, where your Triple H's are, where your Shawn Michaels are. He gets a little bit down just for that. Now, our 8th and last category, big game wrestling. This is your main events, this is your WrestleMania matches, this is your SummerSlam main events, this is being the face of a company, being the face of a pay-per-view. We know that all 4 of these guys have headlined multiple WrestleManias, have headlined multiple pay-per-views, been in multiple huge situations. So starting off with Randy Orton. Randy, I'm giving a 4. And the only reason, again, that Randy's not a 5 is I don't think there was ever a point in these last 20 years where Randy was the total focal point of the company, where he was the guy. He'd been world champion, but I think at the times he was world champion, there were other people considered to be the guy, or other people in the mix, or it would be a short championship reign. So Randy, while really good, he only gets a 4 here. Again, and a 4 is a really good score. I mean, like I said, we're talking about 4 all-time greats, so it's minuscule differences. Next up, John Cena. John gets a 5. For everything that's said about John Cena and his 5 moves of doom, when it comes to big matches, Money in the Bank versus CM Punk, Cena versus The Rock, Cena versus Shawn Michaels, any number of other things you could think of, he steps his game up to a level where he puts on some of the best matches in the last 20 years. And it's not all the other person. John is doing something there. He may not be as technically proficient as a Daniel Bryan. He may not be as great of a striker as a Gunther. When you put the whole thing together, you put him on the big stage, John, more often than not, is going to show out. Next up, Brock Lesnar. I'm giving Brock a 5 in this category. Brock Lesnar has some fantastic matches and some fantastic spectacles in those matches. Whether it be his feud with Reigns, his feud with Cena, Kurt Angle earlier in his career, his feud with Big Show. There have been so many great Brock Lesnar matches that you can't help but put him here because he gives those memorable moments when it means the most. Last on the last category, Dave Bautista. Dave is also getting a 4, much like Randy. Again, this isn't a knock on Batista, but I feel like any time that Batista was a champion, you had someone like Triple H on the other brand or Cena on the other brand that was a world champion that outshined him just a little bit. If all 4 of these guys, let's say they all 4 had a match in their prime at WrestleMania, most likely Cena or Lesnar is going to be the main event, where Orton or Batista may be a little bit down further on the card. More often than not, that's how it shook out. Again, top level guy, just there's a pecking order, if that makes sense. So now we're going to go into our overall. So basically what I do for the overall is I add all of their rankings up between the different 8 categories. The maximum you could get is 40, basically 5 per category, or you could get 5, that'd be the lowest. It's obvious, as you can see, no one here is going to get 5 because all 4 of them got 5 in just one category. So anyway, I digress. The overall for Randy Orton, he gets 33 out of a possible 40. The overall for John Cena, he gets 35 out of a possible 40. Brock Lesnar, 35 out of a possible 40. And Dave Bautista, 33 out of a possible 40. As you can see, this is the second video I've done like this, and I promise I'm not doing this on purpose for extra drama. It just happens to fall this way. We end up with a tie again with John Cena and Brock Lesnar. So we narrow it down to these 2, and much like the first time, what I'm going to judge it on, if I have to watch one match and I got to go back and it's either a Cena match or a Lesnar match, and I have one that I want to watch, who am I going to go to more often? And for me, it's Brock Lesnar. I know he may not be the most favorable person with some of the stuff that came out with the Janelle Grant stuff. I get that. And maybe if we get more of what happened, more comes out, I might change my perception on him because I have changed perception on other wrestlers that stuff has come out really bad about. It's hard for me to objectively watch a Chris Benoit match or a Jimmy Snuka match because of what I know now, or someone like Marty Scurll, who at one point was one of my favorite wrestlers, or Joey Ryan, same thing. It's hard for me to go back and watch their matches knowing what I know. But again, with Brock, we have a little bit of information. It's weird. It's very weird. And it's not 100% morally right, I would say. But at this point, it's not, for me personally. If it's for you, it's something that you don't ever want to see Brock again, I understand. But for me, what I've heard so far isn't a deal breaker. And again, I am fully on the Janelle Grant side of this story. I fully believe everything in that. I understand what she's alleged, so I don't want to be sued here. But from what was said about him, and I'm not going to repeat it here, you probably already know anyway, it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit something I personally wouldn't like. I wouldn't do personally, but I'm not necessarily going to shame someone for that. Whatever he's into, maybe his wife is okay with it. We don't know that part. Maybe they, again, it's not something I would morally do, but I'm not 100% sure what he did crosses that line. And more might come out, and you might watch this 5 months in the future, and we might get a whole deposition of how terrible of a person Brock Lesnar is, and I might change my opinion. But just know at the time of this, while I'm morally against him, I could still watch his matches objective, if that makes sense. And I know I just rambled there for a while about something that you guys probably are going to make your own opinions on. So I understand that. Thank you for indulging me in that. But let me know what you think. Do you think I ordered these guys right? Do you think Brock is the best of the 4? Do you think maybe Randy, Cena, Batista, do you think one of those 3 are better? Let me know down here in the comments. While you're there, smash the like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't, all that good stuff that all the YouTube people tell you to do. If you'd like to see me continue to do these, let me know in the comments. I already have an idea for my next one, and I kind of want to have a theme when I do them. Like, obviously, Shawn and Brett was a rivalry. These were 4 guys that came into wrestling together. I'll give you a hint on the one that I have in mind for next. It's going to be 3 people that came into the WWE as a group, and we're going to compare those 3. If you guys want to see more of that, I'll know by the likes, I'll know by the comments, I know by the view count. If not, no harm, no foul. It's an experiment to see what you guys like and what you enjoy. But anyway, I know it's probably a long video at this point because I ran it several times. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and I want to say thank you for watching.